Into it. Spring practice gets started this week. And so let's do a little bit of a spring practice preview. We got some questions. We got some things that we'll try and go over today with this. But to me, it feels like, and this could just be my perception. You know what? I don't even say my perception. Here's where I feel like. Richie, you tell me if you feel the same way. I'm more excited for spring football this year than I was last year. To me, last year, spring football was 100% about keep guys healthy, put guys in bubble wrap. Let's not lose anybody for the season. We know who is going to at that time we didn't have Keon, but we knew who wide receiver one was. At that point we thought it was Johnny. We knew what the offensive line was going to look like. We obviously knew Jordan was your quarterback. You knew Trey was coming back and Trey Sean had left. You knew what the defensive line was going to look like, even though you hadn't seen Fisk. You knew that he was going to be a big piece of it. Fabo coming back, obviously. You had Farmer. You had some questions around the portal and stuff like that, but with Verse, the linebackers, the secondary, safety depth was like the only thing we didn't know, we weren't sure about, and we made it through the year pretty fair with that. I know Dent missed a little bit of time, but this year I'm much more excited for spring football because I think we'll learn a lot more about the team. Last year I don't think there was much to learn. I don't think there's much. Again, it was just get out of spring healthy. This year feels a lot different.
Yeah, I think when you lose, close to 90%, maybe more of your total production on both offense and defense, yeah, there's a lot of question marks. It is a completely new team. Jimbo, when he was here, he said every single year is a brand new, completely different team. That couldn't be more true than it is this year compared to last year because you're relying on, some transfers to come in and really step up. And then some young guys that we'll touch on to, take that next step in the process of development here at Florida State and a new quarterback. So yeah, last year we knew what we had, right? That Oklahoma game, basically in the Cheez-It Bowl, we knew that team was essentially all coming back. This year, it's completely different. It is a brand new team, and you don't know who's going to be QB1. I think we have a pretty good idea, but who's going to be your WR1, who's going to be RB1. We don't know any of these answers yet. That defense, who is going to step up? You have a lot of young talent that has shown a lot of potential and really flashed, but can someone fill in and, fill those shoes that Jared Verse is leaving? What does the linebacker room look like? I think you really like your secondary, but again, this is going to be a really fun spring because it's such a new team. This might be the new norm, TJ. With the transfer portal and NIL and all that good stuff, we might be seeing this every single spring moving forward. But yeah, last spring, we knew what we had. We knew what we wanted to see, which was just stay healthy. This year, let's see what we actually have and who's willing to take that next step. The one thing I'm really excited about, I think there's a ton of competition, and they are going to push each other at every position across the board.
So let's start with some of that competition. Do you buy any of the noise? I don't mean noise in a bad way. I think that it kind of gets construed as a bad thing. Do you buy any of the noise of Brock Glenn potentially pushing for that starting job? I understand why we brought DJU in, but do you buy any of that that's happening even somewhat early from some reputable places?
I'll say this, if he is the better quarterback in spring and fall camp, I absolutely think he will start. Now, I don't know if he's going to be there or get to that level. I do think he took a massive step from that Louisville game to that Georgia game. I know his numbers weren't great. He clearly had very unideal circumstances surrounding that Georgia game, but he just looks more confident and more ready to play. So I do think there's a chance. I don't think you want to pencil DJ in permanent marker right now as QB1. I do think, it's probably an 80% chance he does win it. But with Mike Norvell, I absolutely think if Brock Glenn goes out there this spring in fall camp and shows he has a better spring and a better fall camp and better camaraderie with his teammates, he's on the same page with his receivers. I don't think Mike Norvell is married to the idea that DJ Uiagalelei has to be the starter. I do think Brock Glenn has a chance. He's going to have to go out and earn it, though, because I do think DJ comes in as QB1, but he can absolutely be dethroned, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, is there a chance? Yes. Would he have to have made a pretty massive leap? Absolutely. And then what do things look like through the year? I mean, people forget, that Brock missed half the year, a little bit more,
Yeah.
with a hand injury. And obviously, I think that made, what he did it made what he was doing in those last two games, Georgia and Louisville, even tougher because of how much time he missed. He wasn't even really a true freshman like you would think of a true freshman would be at the end of the year, getting that full year because of how much time he wasn't able to take reps out there. And then obviously, you didn't need him taking a lot of reps, even if he would have been healthy, but he missed so much time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see there. Okay. Now, some of you have been following Doug Rohan over at Rohan Law on Twitter. He's been all over the FSU ACC litigation. He's really helped explain this process in very simple terms. He makes the law actually very fun and interesting, is the comment that we get over and over and over again in our Discord, on Twitter, everywhere else. If you haven't done so yet, just do me the simple favor of following his social media accounts. You can follow on any platform, but I would certainly suggest Twitter or X because that's where he updates everything that he reads on the ACC FSU dispute. He is a attorney based in Atlanta, wants to be your best friend on your worst day. If you've been arrested, hurt at work, whatever, his team will get you taken care of. They need to be your first call. You can call their number at the number there in the description and follow them on social media for your free consultation today. See there? Okay, so a lot of newcomers this year. You talked about competition. Give me a newcomer on offense and defense. I'll do the same thing. I'll try not to steal yours, but we'll see what our notes end up lining up like. A newcomer on offense and defense that you're most excited for this spring.
I don't know if it's just the pedigree of Alabama running backs, but for me, it's Roydell Williams. I just, I think a lot of people expect Tua Philly to kind of come in and be the guy at running back this year. He's waited his time, but I think Roydell has all the talent in the world, and I'm really excited for him. And on defense, I'm going to go with another Alabama transfer. For me, it's Earl Little Jr. I loved that kid out of high school. I kind of got my hopes up a little bit that we would sign him, and when clear that was foolish at the time. But now that he isn't in Tallahassee, that duo of Alabama players, and I'm thinking of another Alabama player on defense, but I'm not going to say it right now because you might be thinking him too. But man, shout out Coach Saban for retiring because he really bolstered this roster, in my opinion. But yeah, Roydell, I think, has a chance to be special, and I know Earl Little is going to be special. He might be a, 1-2 year guy, and he's out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like both those guys a lot. I think Roydell makes a lot of sense, and could he end up being running back one? Wide receiver is an interesting one. Obviously, you picked up Benson, but man, what can Jaylen Brown bring? I think he's a kid that I really wanted the year before. Now you ended up with Hakeem that year, and Jaylen went to LSU, but man, I really wanted Jaylen Brown in high school, and there was some talk, there was some thought that maybe we could land both of them at that time. So, can he bring anything? Obviously didn't really do anything at LSU last year, but he'll be in his second year. That's a really young room. So he certainly could elevate, and, we'll see who steps up there. Destin's, young years wise, but not necessarily age wise. And you got a young, Hakeem in there, and you signed 4 stars this year. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see what Jaylen Brown could do offensively. I mean, Malik Benson's up there for me as well. TJ I could sit here and list all of them. Another Bama guy on the offensive line. Yeah, the Bama guy you're talking about on defense. Okay, he's not my pick, but it was really close between a couple of SEC guys. Sean Murphy at linebacker. I mean, that's a position room that I don't think we've recruited well enough, and we just lost a ton of talent there, losing both Kalen and Tatum. And so you've got Lundy back. Fortunately, he spent a week or so in Boulder, but you got Lundy back, which is huge. And then Sean Murphy's going to have to help kind of anchor that down, and you'll have other guys in there that add in. But what are you able to get out of that linebacker room is huge. But outside of Murphy, who I know you were kind of alluding to, I mean, it's MJJ, it's one of the bigger recruits that you've, unfortunately, it's a trend, and we'll talk recruiting here in a moment, but one of the bigger recruits that you missed on initially, but you did circle back and get him in the portal. Was Georgia just using him improperly? Was he lining up in the wrong spot? Was that really the issue? What's he really got, in the tank? What can Florida State get out of him? They've done a really, really good job of getting the absolute most out of defensive line transfers, and specifically on that defensive end position. When you think about, Verse and Johnson and Keir Thomas and others, what can they get out of him? I know they took other defensive line transfers. I know there's other guys with names that are really tough to pronounce, like Lolohea and everybody else, that we really are excited to see. But man, I think the entire fan base, especially the older fan base who watched his dad play, is really excited about what he might be able to bring. And so, you'll hear it early, like MJJ's doing some things that are just absolutely ridiculous out here on the practice field, or it'll be kind of quiet and we'll go one way or the other. But yeah, I think Marvin Jones Jr. is a big one that I'm really anticipating, kind of like hearing what he can do. You can't teach his kind of size. You can't teach the freakish athleticism, if I could speak. But can he put it all together on the field? And what does he produce here when he gets here?
Yeah, I think Marvin Jones Jr. is a great one. When you think about the fact that his dad, as a linebacker, finished fourth in the Heisman voting, that's just unheard of. A linebacker should never be in the Heisman conversation unless you have a fake girlfriend. And he was there. and you could easily make an argument that his dad was the best college linebacker in the history of the sport, and nobody would laugh at you. That would be a legitimate argument. Now coming to Florida State, he has very big shoes to fill, and he could be a really solid defensive end. And it may not be fair to him, but that would be looked at somewhat as a disappointment. People are hoping for all ACC, all American type production from him, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm really excited about him. A lot of newcomers. That's what makes this spring so exciting, because you're going to have a lot of newcomers become starters or fighting for starting jobs, which was not the case last spring.
What about returners, guys who were on this roster, last year? So no recruits, no transfers, no this year transfers. What about returners? You got one on offense, one on defense that you are kind of excited to see this year.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth between two receivers because I think that position group is wide open. I think I'm settling on Destin Hill. I'm just really excited. I think he has all the talent in the world. He hadn't played organized football in 2 or 3 years before last year. Didn't get to play a ton. He was hurt a little bit. If he is healthy,
he didn't have a spring last year.
Yeah,
he came in May.
Yeah. If he is healthy, I think he's a guy that could have a huge season and could end up being wide receiver 1, him or Hakeem. We'll see what happens, but I'm really excited about him. And this might be kind of a cheating answer because he's technically a returner, but Darrell Jackson, I'm just so excited to see him play, get on the field. I think him and Farmer are next to each other. They're best friends growing up. The two of those guys, if they stay healthy all year, that interior of your defensive line is going to be nasty, and they are going to strike the fear in quarterbacks and opposing offensive lines all season. So yeah, Darrell Jackson and Destin Hill are probably my two.
Yeah, Darrell Jackson's definitely cheating, but if you didn't say him, I was going to. So I'll give you the hat tip on that. Yeah, Destin Hill's up there for me. I mean, Hakeem, kind of the same thing. He was banged up at times last year, just all the ability in the world. I'll stay in the wide receiver room, though. Sorry to all the offensive linemen that we're skipping over on this, but I'd like to see Rob Scott stay, as healthy as possible, on that O-line.
Yeah, please.
But same thing for Kentron and Ja'Kai Douglas. I'll split mine here. I think both those guys are still really talented. I think they both have a lot they can still bring, but they just got to stay healthy and they got to put it together. Kentron, you mentioned, a lot of people could be wide receiver 1, but Kentron could be for sure.
Yeah.
Can he stay healthy enough to do that? That's the big question, right? Because if he has, too many more injuries, it's hard to foresee a situation where he's going to continue, like where other guys aren't going to finally pass him up, right? Like a Hakeem or Destin or Jalen or different guys we've talked about. So I really want it for him. I really like him. Man, Ja'Kai is a guy that they literally were, Poe and I didn't know it, but Ja'Kai is somebody who they were literally putting packages in because he was so explosive when they were in Jacksonville and during fall camp last year. And, just can't not able to stay healthy, one thing after another. So those would be my picks for offense. I mean, on defense, the Jackson pick is phenomenal. I want to see what he looks like. Pat Payton's one that of course you want to see Pat Payton, but okay, I think Pat Payton shined at times last year because of who he was getting to play with. Like, now can you be the guy? because now this is your defensive line. You are going to be the one that's counted on. You're not able to, and I don't want to minimize everything Pat Payton. I'm not saying that you minimize everything he did because of he got to play with Verse and Fisk, but I think there were times where, it's very different to be the role guy on a defensive line of studs and then, end up being the guy. And so, like, what does this year look like for him? What does fall look like for him? Can he step up and really be a leader for this team? Azariah Thomas is somebody who I expect to, just absolutely go off. And so that would kind of be my other pick for the defense. I mean, I'm excited to hear, kind of some ridiculous things that he does. I mean, again, same thing for him though. Like, he got to be kind of a role guy last year because of how good Green and Jones were, but like, can he be the guy this year? And that's a big difference. So, all right, just one of these, and then we'll move on. Any true freshmen? Anybody that's like in the recruiting class? I don't expect some guys to come in and just make an immediate impact as true freshmen, but some certainly have a better chance than others. So if you could only pick one there, and I know that's tough, only being able to pick one for Mike's highest recruiting class yet, but I'm going to make you just pick one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty easy for me. I'm a big fan of Charles Lester. I just think that the defensive backs room is so loaded. I'm gonna say Cam Davis. He looks college ready, and man, the pictures of him, he does not look like a true freshman. And we talked about Roydell Williams and Lawrence Toafili. I think there's a room for Cam Davis to get some carries early in Algebra. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 5 to 6 carries in Ireland. I think he is just ready-made college running back. And basically it's the easiest position to make an impact at as a true freshman. It just is on either side of the ball, in my opinion. You could argue defensive back, but if running back, you're not really teaching anything. You either have it or you don't. And I think he has it. So I'm going to go with Cam Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes the most sense. I'll go offense as well. I'll go Landon Thomas. I really believe in that kid. I really believe in him being a really good weapon. And again, there's not a lot of positions where a true freshman can come in and make an immediate impact. That might be one as well, right? It might take him a little time. I don't know that it's week 1 or week 0, I guess. We have to get used to saying that all off season again. But yeah, I think Landon Thomas would I pick. It'd probably be Cam Davis if it wasn't. But since you took him, I'll take Landon. Again, I love Lester. I don't know that he's going to make an early impact, and some of the other guys as well. So, yeah, I'll go Landon.